A climate scientist has admitted that he exaggerated the impacts of global warming to get his paper published in a prestigious journal. Dr. Patrick Brown wrote last week that climate change had caused an increase in wildfires in California. But he's now admitted that he deliberately left out information, including the fact that some fires were started deliberately. So how regularly does this happen? Should we now take everything with a pinch of salt? I'm joined by Jim Dale, who's a senior risk meteorologist with British Weather Services, easy for me to say, and a friend of the show, it must be said as well, Jim. Jim, this is something that a lot of people have thought about for quite a while, which is, these climate scientists massively exaggerating climate change in order to get their work published.
I think we found what you might call a slightly mouldy apple in the barrel. Yes, I do. I don't think this is across the science community per se. I think it's right that the science community, or anybody else for that matter, sees these people out and exposes them when they do exaggerate. And there is let's make it clear.
Himself.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah. If he did that, then good on him in the end. We don't need people in the scientific community exaggerating, because there's enough, let's just say, real exaggeration out there in terms of what the climate's actually doing.
I think there's a bigger issue here, which is that he says he felt the need to exaggerate the effects of climate change just to get published. So that implies to me that they will only publish the most sensational stuff. So when we read things, people go, oh, look, have you read this in the journal? Look at this now. You go, hang on a minute, they've published the most sensational thing.
Maybe there's another incentive. It's called money. Money's a driver, and that's on both sides. When I say that, it is on the fringes of science. When you exaggerate something, it's definitely on the other side in terms of the climate deniers that are out there that are being fed by a hosepipe from fossil fuel companies. And it's obvious that there is a financial implication in what they are saying to exaggerate that side and to pick up any straw in the wind that's out there.
Yeah, but that side of things isn't costing the average Joe on the street money every single day. But what this guy's doing is, and it reminds me a bit of those Greek wildfires, where I was in Greece at the time, all the Greek media reporting it as arson. And then over here it's, oh, look at this, it's climate change. It wasn't climate change, it was arson.
OK, so let me explain. When and the truth lies between the two. Make it absolutely clear.
Did someone or did someone not start that fire?
I think there was more than one fire.
Yeah.
And even if they did, that makes no difference. No, it doesn't, because I could be an arsonist in the Scottish Island this year, let's just say, this summer. And my little match down there just wouldn't have gone anywhere. In this case, what you have to have is the underlying conditions set by months of heat wave, not just heat wave, but record temperatures.
And gasoline in a match.
If it doesn't start in that way, then it starts in other ways. And you still have to have the natural conditions in place, whether they be, in the case of Maui, the wind, the high winds caused by the hurricane that was passing to the south. You still need an element of that.
I think this is the kind of stuff that people look at about climate change and turn off from, because they hear you say things like, well, it was already very dry and we had the wind and it's all the weather. Yeah, but there's a bloke over there possibly called Stavros with a canister of gasoline and a lighter, and that's what started it.
Do you wonder what his incentive is? I do as well, because I think, is it just, to cause trouble? What is it? What's he trying to prove? I don't know. But
Maybe he works for the climate lobby.
I wouldn't go that far. What I would say is take the bad apple out of it and look at what's happening. Well, look at what's happening. Even yesterday, the World Meteorological Organization, NASA, published the fact that the period June, July, and August is the hottest, and that's thousands of records. That's not some guy in a hut somewhere typing something up for a bit of money.
Yesterday was the hottest day since 2016.
That's correct. I'm talking
since 2016. So 2016, it was as hot.
El Nino year.
Right.
El Nino year.
OK.
So we're getting another El Nino year now. So what?
Like a natural cycle.
It's a natural cycle, but what climate change does is it adds to the pile. That's what I say. I don't look at necessarily a single example of what you might call climate change, or people would claim to be climate change. They say, that's climate change. I mean, I was asked the question yesterday, is this climate change? And I said, it probably isn't climate change. What you get with climate change is a situation, say the Greek storm, for example, or the Spanish floods, or the Brazil one, join the dots all the way along. But what you get is an event that occurs, and then the extra energy in the atmosphere or the ocean pushes it along even further.
But it's a question for me about whether or not we can trust what we're being told. We saw it with ULEZ, where it looked a lot like Sadiq Khan paid around £800,000 to get a study done that backed up what he wanted to do. And then on top of that, got someone who was on the payroll at City Hall, as is all reported, to then go and peer review it, OK? So it looked as though that was that. We also had a lot of very questionable science, which I will not get you to comment on, don't worry, around the coronavirus, etc. There was a huge amount of questionable science that came out there, and about articles being placed in journals that were very favourable to suit politicians at the time. And now we've got this guy coming out and saying that he exaggerated climate change and the effect of wildfires in order just to get published. And I'm looking at, well, can I just believe anything that I read now about the climate crisis? Meanwhile, I see money going out my bank account every single day or every single week to help fight this climate crisis.
OK, wood for the trees comes into mind, doesn't it? Because there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of data. And you know what? If you're not in the business, if you like, and even I get, let's just say, strangulated sometimes by the amount of stuff that's out there. We all do to a degree. But I think you've got to sort the wood from the trees. That's what you've got to do. That's what I do. I don't pick every event and say, that's climate change, that's not climate. It's not the way you do it. What you look at is the bigger picture, and you join those dots of what's happening on a global scale, and that tells a story on its own. That's the direction of travel. Believe me, and we will be, I'm sure, Patrick, I'll say this openly to you, we will be sitting here. I mean, how many times have we talked now, in the last... A lot. And if climate wasn't driving this to any degree... I might be, once in a blue moon.
Well, I do get you on quite regularly to talk about whether or not it's a load of rubbish, is the thing. That's the... I do enjoy our chatship. And if we are sat here in 10 years' time, maybe I will be just wearing some kind of string vest and shorts and flip-flops, because it will be...
If we're still alive, I shouldn't say that.
If we're still alive, if we're even still alive. Jim, look, thank you very much. Anyway, take care. All right, Jim Dale there.